Hello, class, the receiving students and teachers.
Hello, Miss Vargas.
Thank you. You may be seated. Once again, students and the receiving schools, teachers and class is still on the same strand, the same sub-strand, learning outcome, as well as the unit. Now, in the previous lesson, we had a look at different types of shells. We have a question there asking us why animals have shells. Why do animals have shells? Donald, if you can give us the answer to this question. Why do animals have shells? Why do animals have shells?
Animals have shells because the shells will protect them from their flesh and meat.
Very good, thank you. Any other reasons why animals have shells? Isaac?
Protect them from predators.
Very good, to protect them from their predators. Now, there are about three types of shells we looked at. If I can have someone from the class to give us or name me one type of shell. I do not wish for you to call me the names of those animals, but the groups. There are three different types, three main groups of shells. I'd like you to give me one of them. Our receiving students, please, I'd like you to do the same. Not to name the animals, receiving students. You give the three different types of shells that shells can be classified into. Thank you, Joshua.
Mollusk.
Very good, mollusk. Another, receiving students, I hope you are already giving your teachers the three different types of animals with shells. The classes or the groups. Marisha? Mollusk, what else?
Crustaceans.
Very good, crustaceans. What else? What else? Florence? What else? Mollusk, crustaceans, what else?
Other animals.
Other animals. Give me an example of other animals, Nola. Give me an example of other animals. Animals with shells that belong to that group.
Turtle.
Very good. Turtle and also tortoise for our students who live inland or up in the highlands. Mollusk. Policiela. Mollusk, give me an example. Example of one mollusk shellfish or shell.
Snail.
Snail, good. Crustacean. Any crustacean? Give me an example of an animal that belongs to that group.
Shells.
Okay, what type of shells? Name me one of those shells that belong to that group called crustaceans.
Kina shells.
Kina shells, what do you think, Daisy, about kina shells? Thank you, Annie, for trying. If you can tell me, what do you think about kina shells? Annie says kina shells, so what do you say about kina shells? Receiving students, what do you say about kina shells? Tell your teacher.
Bright price.
Okay, good try. Kina shells, which group is it supposed to be in? Bagley? Receiving students, please tell your teacher Which group do you think Kina shell is supposed to be in? Is it crustaceans, mollusks, or other animals? Begley, which group should Kina shell be in?
Crustaceans.
Crustaceans, yes. That's what Annie said. Momoru?
Mollusk.
Mollusk. Kina shells belong to mollusk group of shells. I've shown you in the previous lesson, group them, and I've shown you. If you have looked or observed closely, you should have seen some of those Kina shells. They were in there. So mollusks are shells that are very hard to be broken. You cannot break it with your hands. You have to use something to break the shells. Now, with crustaceans, you can easily break the shell with your hands. Okay? Thank you. Now, let's have a look at these pictures I have. Receiving students, please. Tell your teacher what you can about the picture there. It has 4 animals there. Receiving class, I'd like you to tell me what you can about those 4 pictures, the pictures of animals that we have on the screen. We have a turtle, a cuscus, a fish, and a crocodile. Quickly discuss in your groups. Receiving students do the same. If you're not able to think of the answer or what you can yourself, discuss quickly in your groups. For the last 2 lessons, I've had pictures like that, ask you to try to compare or the animals that you had on those pictures. I also have another lot of animals. See what you can tell me about those animals. Anyone? Receiving students? I hope you are telling your friends. Our friends in the model class are still discussing. Thank you. Let's have Tara.
Turtle have shell, cuscus have face, and fish and crocodiles have scales.
Very good, thank you. So we have turtle that has shells that belongs to other animal group. We have cuscus that has fur, and we have fish and turtle which have scales. Thank you, and that will bring us to our lesson topic for this lesson, which is scales. Why wear them? Who wears scales? We wear scales. Humans, do we wear scales? Or then who wears them? Receiving students, who wears scales? Tell your teacher. And we'll have Maria to tell us. Who wears scales?
Reptiles.
Good. Reptiles. Who else? Who else wears tails? Just give me a word to put all those that you name under one word. Darren? Or you raise your hands but slipped off your mind. Oh, thank you. He's going to give us the answer. Thank you, Darrell.
Mammals.
Mammals, good. Mammals, reptiles. All of them, what do we say, receiving students and class? What do we say? What do we say? What do we say? All those reptiles, you said mammals, you looked at birds, all those, they are animals. Animals, okay? So animals are the species that wear scales, not as humans. And there are different types of animals that you have just named them, like, the species, like mammals, and some of you have said reptiles. Okay, now, we have the definition for the word scales, and I'd like you to have that copied quickly into your books, class and the receiving students. Scales, thin overlapping plates, not the plates that we eat our food on. This is talking about scales on animals of hard material covering the skin of many fish and reptiles, especially fish and reptiles. They are the ones that have scales on them. And with fish, not all the fish, only some have scales.
What is a reptile?
While you are getting the definition written, receiving students as well as the class, I have a discussion point for you. For discussion, I'd like you to discuss in your groups, within your groups, because with many heads, we can come up with our answers quicker and faster than only one person working on your own, thinking very hard of what answer to give. Now, your discussion is on the question, why do you think animals have scales? Why do animals have scales? Discuss quickly in your groups, receiving students, you do the same. We have a picture there. Fish. We don't have it only down at the coast, we also have it up in the highlands as well as inland. You have fish in the rivers, ponds. So that should help you to come up with your answer to that discussion point. If you can just come up with one and give me, I can accept that. Receiving students, I hope you are doing the same. Discuss quickly in your groups and tell your teacher why you think animals have scales. Okay, let's have the first one from the class and receiving students. I hope you are already giving your teacher your discussion. Walter? Thank you, Walter. He'll tell us what himself and his friends discussed about. Thank you, Walter. Why do animals have scales?
To help them move around easily.
Okay, it helps them. Okay, Walter and his friends said helps them move around easily. Anybody else has a different one from what Walter and his friends have? Receiving students, I hope you are already giving your teacher what you have come up with. Thank you. We have Lisa.
To protect their soft body inside.
Very good, thank you. To protect their soft bodies, okay? Protect their bodies. What else? Anybody else? Will I one more? Why do animals have scales? Michael?
They wear scales because the scales will protect them from their predators.
Okay. So it protects them from their predators. Okay, now we already have 3 there. Protect their bodies. Animals have scales in order to protect their bodies. It also helps them to move around easily and protect them from their predators. Now, scales also help to keep moisture in the animals' bodies, whether it's fish or reptile. Scales also help to reduce friction as animals and reptiles move around. Now we come to our activity. Now I'd like you to take note as I go through, and after that we will work on our activity. Firstly, we are going to work in our groups as receiving students. You are to identify animals with scales and list them. Now, secondly, you sort the list of animals into the 2 groups as reptiles and fish. Now, that is how you should group them in. You have reptiles and fish. Write the names of the reptiles that you know that have scales, and fish. Now, fish, I'd like you to write the names of fish. Maybe shark, tilapia, whatever. Red emperor, or whatever, the eelfish or what. Okay? Please, I'd like you to come up with 4. 4 will do for this lesson, but teachers, if you wish for your students to come up with some more, you can do that in your own time after this lesson. You have been given paper. There is a paper there. I'd like you to work together in a group. There are 2 papers. One paper you are to have that activity table and list your reptiles and fish that have scales. Do not touch the other paper. You're going to work on that one. All of you work together. Later on, what you have here, you can get it into your worksheet handbook. Work together on one paper. Okay, after that, what you have there, you can get it into your workbooks. Thank you. 4. I'd like to have 4, not more than 4. If you have 10 or 20, well and good, but I'd like to have 4. 4 reptiles, 4 fish. Don't leave insects out. Okay, we're only looking at these 2. Teachers in the receiving schools, in your worksheet you have another column that says insects. Now, we will only look at reptiles and fish. As insects, it will be a bit difficult for our students at this level, so we will only work on reptiles and fish. Work together, okay, good. That's your, okay, but you have to put reptiles and, no, you're going to use one paper. The other paper is for another one. Okay, that's okay, I'll give you one. Okay, Okay, so what you do here, reptiles, fish. List your reptiles, fish. Don't mix them. You have to put reptiles, okay, fish on the other side. It's okay, I'll give you one paper for. Firewood. Any leftover paper? Now class, our third part of this activity, class and the students in the receiving schools, third part of this activity, you are to compare the difference between the scales of reptiles and fish. You have been given two papers. One paper is to list the reptiles and fish that have scales. Another paper for you to write down your comparison of the difference between the scale of reptiles and fish. Now, to help yourself, our receiving students in the class, you can divide yourself into two groups in your own group you have, and another group will work on the listing of reptiles and fish, another on the third part of the activity. Writing the names of animals or reptiles and fish that have scales shouldn't take you long. You only to write 4. Now you should be all on the third part of the activity to compare the difference between the scales of reptiles and fish. Now to help you, I just had 3 pictures here. That's one of fish and 2 reptiles, crocodile and snake. Work together, contribute, discuss to get that done quickly. While it's getting that done, you should be working on the third one, comparing the difference between the scales of reptiles and fish. Discuss it. How are they different? Scales of fish, reptiles like snake and crocodile. How are they different? Somebody should be writing now your comparison of the scales. You think of fish and snake, crocodiles, lizards, those are reptiles. Think of their scale and the scale of fish. They are not the same. They are different. Okay, how are they different? You can use some simple words to describe what you can do to a fish that you cannot do to, what you can do to scales of fish that you can't do to scales of snakes, reptiles like crocodile and all. You know, those are things that you can just write to compare the difference. We haven't started on our third part of activity, comparing now. We are still listing it down. The third one is there. You only to write 4, so it shouldn't take you long. Now you should be on that one there. Compare the difference between the scale of reptiles and fish. Fish scale and reptiles like crocodile, snake, they are not the same. They're very different. So how are they different? You just write it one sentence, something like that to compare. That first should be already finished. Only 4, and it's taking us long. So now we should be on the third one, comparing the difference between the scales. Fish and reptiles like snake and crocodile, you think they have the same type of scales? Do they have the same type of scales, my colleague? Fish and snake, crocodile, their scales are the same? No, so how are they different? You can just express it in your own way, simple. Just one sentence will do. Thank you. What? What?
Eels.
They don't have shells. Eels don't have shells. Sorry, scales, no? I said not all fish have scales. Only some have scales. Others don't.
What do they call this? Long nose.
Long.
Fish. Long nose. What do they call it?
I don't know the name too, but do you know the name in Pidgin? Yeah. Okay, let me see. What do you see? That's fish you have there, tilapia, parrotfish. Okay, you said red emperor. Okay, that's another. E-M-P-E-R-O-R. E-M-P-E-R-O-R. Red emperor. We should be on the second paired part of activity now, receiving students in the class. Okay, get ready because you are finishing first and you're going to present, okay? Both of them. Class and the receiving students and teachers, we will be doing a presentation. We'll have 2 groups. They will be presenting the work that you have done or they have done together in the group. Receiving students, I hope you have also had your list of reptiles and fish that have scales. And also you did your discussion on comparing the scales of fish and reptiles. Okay, we will have from Bagley's group the 2 who are going to do their presentation. Thank you. Come and put you can put it up there. Okay, we have wind first. Huh? Okay, thank you. Okay, stand here. Come over here. You can use the stick to point to what the other.
From our group, we list down some names from reptiles: lizard, crocodiles, snakes, and alligators. The list from fish is eel, shark, tilapia, and red emperor.
Very good, thank you. So that is the list of reptiles and fish that they have, that they think have scales on them. Bagley is going to tell us how they compare those, the scales of fish and reptiles. You think you stand there, stand over here.
In our group, we compare the reptiles and the fish. We compare about scales, how they
use their scales to use their reptiles. Reptiles are animals that live on the land. Some reptiles are very dangerous. Some of their scales are very thick and strong. Other side we have fish. Fish are animals that live in the sea, and they are animals that people eat. Their scales help them to slide through holes.
Very good, thank you. That is what Wynne, Bagley, and their friends came up with. Now we will have from this group, Walter and his friends. Okay, bring it down. Okay, stand over here. You want to point to Ruben. So we will have Ruben to...
In our group, we have fish and reptile. Some of the fish are tilapia, red emperor, crownfish, barramundi, mackerel. Some of the reptiles are snake, crocodile, lizard, and turtle.
Well, thank you. Okay, let's have your comparison, how you compare the fish and reptiles. Walter?
Comparing the fish and reptiles, fish have scales that are stronger than the reptiles.
Okay, good, thank you. Thank you, Walter and Ruben. Now, receiving students and the teachers, these are some of the examples of animals that have scales and, animals that have scales like reptiles and fish. We basically looked at fish and reptiles. You were also to compare the scales of fish and reptiles. Now, looking at fish and reptiles, they are very different from each other, especially the scales that they have. And the scales depends on the different species as well as fish. Now, if we look at some examples, like we have a look at the first group, we have the eelfish and the shark. Okay, most of us who live by the sea or beside rivers, if we look closely at eel and shark, I want you to think about it. Do you think they have scales? No. But thank you, our friends tried their best. At least they have red emperor and tilapia. Okay, eel and shark, they don't have scales. Now, earlier in the lesson, I said not all fish have scales, only some have scales. Okay. Now, looking back to our lesson for today on scales, why have scales? Now, scales are very important, and we had a look at that when we were discussing about why animals have scales. Now, one, we said it protects their bodies. It also protects them from their predators. It also reduces friction as they move around. And also, it keeps moisture in their bodies, keeps the body wet. And with that, I will come to our summary points for this lesson. Receiving students in the class, I'd like you to take note, get them copied into your workbooks as we go through. Our first summary point, scales protect the body of the animals. Our second summary point, scales protect animals from their predators. Third summary point, scales help to reduce friction as animals move. Or you can add around, move around. Fourth summary points, scales help to keep moisture in animals' bodies. Now, our fifth summary point is telling us that animals like snakes, they usually shed their scaly skins and replace the old worn out skins. They get rid of the old skin, scaly skin, and they replace them with new ones. Our last summary point, receiving students in the class, while you are copying the last summary point down, I'd like you to think of our key phrase for this lesson. That's our last summary point. Arrangement of scales and type of scales is usually characteristic for each species. Characteristic meaning different types of animals, the species they belong to, makes them have different types of scales. A red emperor's fish, that is a fish, the way the scales are arranged may be different from a tilapia fish. A crocodile scale, the way it's arranged may be different from a snake. Okay, our key phrase for this lesson, receiving students, I'd like you to tell your teacher what you think the key phrase for this lesson is. And if I can have the class, someone to tell us. Okay, Samuel has his hands up, so let's have Samuel to tell us what the key phrase for this lesson is.
Scales.
Okay, that is the key phrase that Samuel has given us, receiving students. I hope you also gave yours to your teacher. Now, what I have is why, where, scales, and that is the key phrase for this lesson. Our next lesson, it says glorious gills. Why have them? Now, for your homework, I'd like you to find out about what gills are. Receiving students, try to find out what are gills. These are part of a fish. Part of a fish. So I'd like you to, in your own time, for your homework, find out what gills are. Okay, materials, once again, it's papers, pencils, crayons. Our teacher will provide that for you. And with that, thank you, class, and the receiving students for your participation. You are